Welcome back. Now, it appears the bubble has burst for the Nigerian startup ecosystem now. Of course, just about 2 or 3 years ago, the entire world talked about the vibrant Nigerian startup ecosystem. Investors were rushing in and investing on almost any startup they could find. Money was really pouring in for those, for the startups now in this country. But all of that have now changed. Investors, especially venture capitalists, appear to have taken a flight. Nigerian startups are now seriously struggling to raise funds. In fact, quite a number of them have laid off staff and closed shops. And it doesn't just stop there. They're also losing good talents and struggling to attract top talents as well. All of this is contained in the latest report by TLP Advisory, a global law practicing firm. Now, that organization conducted a survey and the final report was quite revealing. Another report, of course, by an organization known as Disrupt Africa says 53 startups have shut down across 7 African countries in the last decade, between 2013 and 2024, with Nigeria leading the pack with a total of 25 startups shutting down in this country. Despite these hurdles, the Nigerian startup ecosystem continues to show resilience and growth potential. But there's no question at all that these are very troubling times for Nigerian startups. And joining me now to discuss all of this, I have Ezekiel Adeyinka, who is a product and startup consultant from Bingpe AI. And I also have Ayodeji Agbola, who is the CEO of Akowe App. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Let me start with you, Ezekiel. You look at I'm very sure you must have seen the TLP advisory report. Tell us just how bad it is for the Nigerian ecosystem at this time when it comes to raising funds.
Okay, thank you so much for this. From my own experience and from the data out there, it's been really bad in the sense that right now, any startup or even startups right now are actually struggling to even raise more funds. It takes time to, raise capital. It takes time to even get investors to even, put in some valuable amount of money into any company or product or idea that you're building right now, compared to, what used to happen back in those years that, you could just literally have an idea with no traction yet, but you can actually like get the necessary funding or capital to be able to even run and kickstart whatever idea or product you have in mind. But right now, it's looking so stressful in the sense that, investors are pretty much, finding other alternatives or even finding another market to even invest in. The Nigerian market has really been a very stressful one for them, especially with the whole Naira devaluation. So the way dollar is going up, Naira is going down, all of those kind of things, it's really causing a lot of headache for investors. And in the news, you would even be hearing of even big companies shutting down. Microsoft just left Nigeria. You also hear of other well-established companies also leaving. And that's because of the economic situation of the country, because of how difficult and challenging it is to do business in Nigeria right now. So I would say it's really a struggle, especially for Nigerian startups. Not just only Nigerian startups, or not just only startups, but even for even growing startups or even established startups. Everybody is really facing the heat right now. Yeah.
Ayodeji, look, just 2 years or so ago, in 2021, Nigerian startups were able to raise $3 billion. How did we move from $3 billion just 2 years ago to now finding it difficult to raise funds? How did the Nigerian startup ecosystem move from that peak to where it is at the moment?
I think it's basically about markets correcting themselves. What's happening right now is not very different from what happened in the dot-com bubble as well, where, there was a lot of money thrown at almost any idea, and there was a huge glut in the entire system. But usually what happens is that markets will correct themselves, and the real businesses that are solving real problems will start to emerge. And those that were just a lot of fluff without substance will start to fizzle out. But in this case, not necessarily the bubble busting, but again, there's certainly elements of that in there. But also, it's happening at the same time when the Nigerian currency itself, is now being shown for how strong it really is. So a combination of all of these different factors are leading to a lot of people rethinking their investment choices. And unfortunately as well, I think Nigeria has also got some type of bad press around performance of startups in the last 2 or 3 years. And that definitely, would get investors start rethinking whether they want to put their money in there or not. So
And I think I want to take you
it's
up
a
on
serious
that because
problem.
okay, yeah, I would like
Yeah.
to take you up on that because in the report, I mean, there's this impression I got from reading that TLP advisory report that some of these venture capitalists, so some of these investors were just pouring in money into startups. They were not thinking about profitability. They were not thinking of how profitable these startups were, and they were not thinking of how they were going to, how these startups are going to make the money to pay back. But they were just pouring money into just ideas. And these startups on their part too didn't really work to gain traction in terms of revenue and profitability. And so that's the reason why, it's part of the reasons why, these investors are now finding it difficult to put in more money. And because somehow they say their fingers have been burnt.
Yeah, so you have to understand the way startups are structured. They're not typical businesses where you put in your money and expect to get dividends over at the end of every year and things like that. Startups are structured differently in the sense that you're buying equity, and what makes the equity, the value of the equity to go up, sometimes it's not profitability. Sometimes it's the number of users. Sometimes it's the market potential over the next 5-7 years. Sometimes it's the number of partnerships that this startup is able to put together based on the problem it is trying to solve. So while all of this is true, sometimes, it also happens that, okay, investors themselves know that if they have a portfolio of 20 startups, they know that maybe one or two might return a large size return. However, to find that one or two that would return that large size return, you have to put money in as many. So it's a combination of trying to make sure that you don't lose out, as well as, okay, let's just make sure that, okay, if we're going to find a winner in the market, we've got our money in there. Apart from the fact that, you didn't really do due diligence, which is something else entirely. But again, this is how startups are structured, and sometimes that's what causes some of these drop-offs.
Ezekiel, you talked about, and it came through in that report, the issue of foreign exchange and, of course, the devaluation of the naira. Just help us understand how this is a problem for startups in the country.
Okay, so generally, right now, doing business in Nigeria is even a struggle. Whether you're a fashion business, whether you're a restaurant, whether you're selling anything, everybody's complaining, with the rise in fuel, in the rise in electricity tariff. So there's a lot of burn rates now, pretty much. So in the startup sense, startups get to spend more money on burn rates, rather than spending money on innovation, spending money on, getting across their products or ideas to their customers. So in a real sense of it, because things are getting really expensive, you just see that startups get to even use any money that they have to just survive. It's more of like a survival mode right now for any form of business, whether you're in tech or whether you're in any industry. So pretty much at the end of the day, most startups don't even have anything to show for it because it's pretty much all the money that they use to, run their operations. And at the end of the day, there's nothing of much profit or much returns to show for it. But that aside, the fact that the currency is really, really devaluating makes investors want to look at other industries or other countries pretty much. And with the fact that they know that, oh, because as an investor you want to definitely be sure that, okay, if you put your money into 5 things or 10 things, at least 5 or 6 would give you a valid return. So but because of the history of startups closing down, crashing down, laying offs, it has formed a stigma in Nigerian startup ecosystem for investors out there, and they would rather want to go into another country or another market, pretty much. So that's a major thing because it's not even just only affecting startups, but it's also even affecting big organizations, laying offs and then even closing down shops just to go into another country. So I would say, that's been a very great struggle. And I think the government has a major part to play in this because nobody wants to eventually be part of, any struggling economy because it's just a chaos. So the government has a major part to play just to ensure that, if the economy can be better, can be improved, it will bring in more economic trade, it will bring in more investors, to see Nigeria or the Nigeria ecosystem as a fertile ground because the truth is, there are a lot of ideas, there are a lot of innovations, there are a lot of problems to solve. But the thing is, from an investor point of view, I put this amount. How am I sure I'm going to get my money back? How am I sure that the economy is not going to ruin such investments or even such startups? And your last thing. So, for as much as I go for events or I see a lot of startups coming out with a lot of amazing ideas, you just hear that in the next few years they've closed down or they are no longer in existence. And the reason why is that they've spent all their funding pretty much on cost of operation, pretty much on surviving, and less on innovation, less on even getting their ideas out there into the global market. So the government really has a major part to play in ensuring that they need to save the life of businesses. They need to save the life of
Okay.
Nigerian startups. Yeah.
Let's face it. I mean, if you get funding in dollars, for instance, and you're doing your business in naira, that from the get-go is a problem. Is that part of what startups are dealing with and part of the reasons why they're facing this difficulty at the moment?
Yeah, I would say yes, and I would also say a soft no, not a hard no, a soft no. In the sense that, remember, because of how startups are structured, if you're taking this investment as a loan, then that's really, really bad because now you've taken a dollar loan that you are operating in a naira economy, and with the devaluation, you have to pay back in dollars. That's going to really, really make you struggle. However, if the investment is equity based, where they buy equity in your business, if this startup is able to run a proper business and the valuation of the company is able to grow despite all of the setbacks in the economy, the value of the investment has still increased. So it's not in all cases that the investment is going to go bad because of the value of the naira, because of how startups are structured, and the equity that they are buying. But then again, the valuation of your company will not go up if you are not able to operate efficiently or effectively and solve problems and get a lot of customers to buy what you're selling. So again, it goes back to the core of the solution that this startup is bringing to the market. Is there a market that is big enough to buy whatever it is that you're selling, so that you can even expand beyond your country into regions and then maybe even globally? So these are the issues, and hopefully, startups will start to solve real problems that have a really big market and can help them survive.
Now, would I be right to say that, that most startups simply concentrate so much on creating ideas, coming up with solutions and all of that, but they don't look at the market side of things. They don't look at the revenue side of things. That your concentration is usually on the technology, and it's part of the reasons why you are having to struggle now.
Yeah, that's quite true, and it's what we usually call founders bias, where you're so much in love with your idea and you just want to build out this idea, and this is the next best thing, this is the next coolest thing, right? So, however, and this is why platforms like accelerators exist, incubators and accelerators. They exist in the market to help founders think through the business side of the solution or the problem that they're trying to solve. Uh, and with these accelerators and incubators, you then see higher quality startups coming out at the other end, because now they've been put through the ringer. Like, don't just sit down and be writing code. Go talk to customers and know whether they're experiencing the problem the way you think they're experiencing it. And that helps them to think about the business early on. With that in mind, you then get higher quality startups coming out of these platforms, and at least you have a higher chance of survival in the market.
Ezekiel, let me know how you are navigating this challenge. You look at the report, it talked about angel investors coming to the rescue and all of that. Is that the case in your own situation?
Okay, so just by the side, part of the part of the other challenges too that most people don't even take note of is things like regulatory and legal challenges.
Okay.
There are a lot of regulatory concerns in Nigeria, and also with the fact that there's a lot of talent acquisition issues. So you might have a good idea, but you don't have like the right talent to even help you build it because everybody has left the country. But in terms of looking at funding, pretty much because to even get right talent or even to even get the right regulatory license, irrespective of what industry you are in, that's where you now need to now look for how to get more funds from another means. And that's where angel investors come in terms of like, oh, somebody somewhere that, has some money that they can bet on you to give you some cash so that you can actually like, face some of those hurdles or challenges. It could be maybe you want to get some license in your space, or it could be that, oh, you want to use the money to, get the right talent, or even get some infrastructures in place. So that's where sometimes angel investing investors come in, but it's not as easy as most people think about it, because most angel investors, they want to have like a large chunk of your startup, just for a very short, small amount of money. So it's also a challenge because everybody is just trying to gain from you, and even the money you really need is not even enough to even solve the other hurdles or challenges you have. So at most points you might just go or focus on maybe bootstrapping or maybe building some enterprise solutions just to raise money by the side, just to keep forging ahead, irrespective of whatever challenges one might be facing. So it's not really an easy journey, but then we just have to keep fighting the struggle just to ensure that we keep moving.
Ayodeji, tell me about Akowe app now. How are you managing to keep the business running?
I would say that first of all, if as a founder, you cannot but have a steady source of income. Either that's a job or that's a side business that you do that helps you keep the lights on. Because startups are very hard, and for many reasons. You're trying to solve an existing problem in a new way, which means you're fighting user behavior, you're fighting the natural averseness to change that people have, and your model is not tested. So you're fighting so many odds. What we've been able to do, I mean, I run a digital marketing firm, and that has been what has kept us alive while we're bootstrapping. And then sometime last year, after we got selected for the TechCrunch startup battlefield, I realized that we needed to then start raising external funding, and like Ezekiel said, angel investors might be your best bet at this very early stage. And that's what we did. I just simply put out a very simple document that explained the problem we're solving, why we're solving it, what we've been able to do, and how much we're looking to raise. And quite a number of angel investors came through, and that has also helped cushion the effect of making sure that we can stay alive as long as we have. And I think, again, any startup that's going to survive must also be solving a really, really serious problem on the ground, so that investors can also relate with this problem and say, okay, I would like to support the solution that this person is building. Otherwise, it's always going to be a very, very hard sell. No matter how unique what you're selling is, you still have to make sure that it has real impact on the ground and there are customers who are going to be buying whatever it is you're selling.
Now, let me ask you, Ezekiel, the issue of talent, attracting talent now, it's there in the report that it's also a very big issue at this time. You did talk about it as well. Let me use the word now, this issue of people leaving the country now. How is it a situation that is affecting the startup ecosystem in the country, and the reason why it's becoming difficult for you to attract top talents? Because as we know, people are leaving the country, young people especially.
Right? And I can tell you that most of the really good guys, in tech, they've left. So they've left the country. So there's a lot of brain drain, a really lot of brain drain. So skilled workers are pretty much looking for better opportunities abroad. They are looking for, to make more money, to make their life better. And there's no way you are good that you won't be poached by, good companies. So it now makes it a very big challenge for startups in Nigeria to even, like get the right talent to help build whatever idea or whatever product into the market. So as a startup now, let's say even if you have some funding, you have to poach talent from abroad, maybe from India or maybe from US or anywhere. And that's a lot of money. So now startups even get to spend a lot of money on talent and even retaining them. And it's one thing to even attract, it's another thing to retain. Because if as a business you're not profitable enough on time, you will lose your talent, and then you have to go back to the same loop of looking for the next talent or for the right talent to help you solve your problems. So it's a very, very big problem. So there's a lot of brain drain, there's a lot of skill gaps, and there's also a lot of high competition for talent, right now in Africa, in Nigeria, because I remember those days of Conga, right? All the guys that built Conga when Conga was still Conga, they've left. Or even the early days of Andela, the guys that, started Andela or like, were working for Andela as software engineers, they've all left. So who else is left to help build your idea? So you have to have a lot of money to be able to attract those talents from anywhere they are, just so that you can build your startup or build your idea. And that's one of the things even investors are looking at, because they know that, because when you're even pitching to them and saying, this is what you want to use your money to do, they would also, it's also shady, because they will like, spending a lot of money on cost of operation, and then retaining talent or attracting talent is a lot of cost of operation, which in the long run makes some startups not profitable, and then they have to shut down at the end of the day. So talent is really, really a very major problem, aside from the economic situation, aside from regulatory challenges, or even aside from market challenges here and there. Talent acquisition and retention, because now developers, once they spend like 1 year in your company, they are looking for the next opportunity, unless you can find ways to retain them. And there's a lot of competition out there, especially outside Nigeria, like startups outside Nigeria, are really looking for Nigerian talent. And Nigerian talent are one of the best and smartest guys out there. So it's a struggle in the sense that Nigerian startups struggle to even find Nigerian talent and even retain them in the long run. So it's really a very major concern.
Well, let me just quickly ask you, what do you think the government can do to help reverse this situation, to help startups in this country to regain
So
their feet?
I would say everything starts from, ensuring that the economy regain its feet. Because if you look at it, why are people leaving? Because they don't have access to the right opportunities, they don't have access to the right infrastructure. If all of those things can be put in place, people would definitely want to stay back and build, solutions to solve problems around, right? So it's the government has a lot of parts to play in ensuring that the economy is stable. Dollar to naira now is so crazy. Dollar to pounds now is so crazy. As a tech talent, why won't I not prefer to work for an American company that I know that will pay me something reasonable? So the government will I just wish the government can see this um, brain drain, see this skill gap issue, and ensure that the right infrastructures are put in place. There's always light issues, there's always internet problems. It's a lot of it's disgracing sometimes. So, but the government can help solve this problem, just to keep the talent and even attract the talent back into the country, um, to ensure that the Nigerian economy regains its reputation.
All right, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for coming on the program and sharing your thoughts with us. Thanks a lot. Ezekiel Adeyinka, product and startup consultant from Bingbe AI, and Ayodeji Agbola, the CEO of Akowe App. Thank you very much, guys, for coming on the program. Thanks a lot. I will take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Don't go away. Opinions are free. Facts are sacred. But truth is universal. How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
When you go into public office, you must be ready to answer to the people.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On DEJI360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
DEJI360, dissecting the issues.